Karen Brown, and this is Mississippi Edition on MPB Think Radio. Life on the road can be rewarding and challenging all at the same time. Two men who know this all too well are Jonathan Freddies and Eugene Pidgeon. They're both clowns and traveled with one circus after another for years. Freddies and Pidgeon had Mississippi Edition executive producer Ezra Wall wondering if the stereotype is true.
Did you literally, as the story goes, run away and join the circus, Jonathan?
Actually, I did run away and join the circus.
And so did I.
Really?
Yeah.
Both of you, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just a rumor.
No. That actually...
It was almost like I was on the lam.
Yeah, my father was a musician, and I was on my way to music school.
And my father was an Ivy League businessman from Memphis, Tennessee, who did not want his firstborn son, who was a firstborn dwarf, putting on white paint and dancing in front of 20,000 people.
My mother, on the other hand, read an article about the clown college and suggested that it might be something I wanted to do out of high school. And I took it kind of as on a lark, you know. And
okay.
But I found out later that thousands of people would apply to the school, and out of that 1,000, 50 got accepted, and then out of that, 20 actually got contracts on the show. And I was able to go through all of that and get on the first bicentennial show in 1974.
And I told my father that I would not go to clown college if he could get me an appointment to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. And understanding that my world ends at 4'3" and the rest of the world begins at 5'2", that was a bit speculative.
Right.
So I went to clown college. Wore a uniform anyway.
And did you know that when you arrived at clown college and began to go through that experience, did you know that that's what you would be doing for the rest of your life?
I actually did not. The first day there, I remember looking at everybody, and there were people doing juggling, magic, all these different things. And I'm sitting there going, "What am I doing here?"
So did you, when you went there, did you look at all the things and were you inspired by the idea that you were going to learn all that, or was it daunting to think that
it was daunting.
I have to learn all that?
I felt like a lost dwarf in high wire, you know, in the sense that this was an entirely different, I didn't go necessarily to pursue an art form. I went to pursue an adventure, whereas I believe Jonathan, his whole idea was pursuing an art form, where he ultimately would find his adventure. But I fell into the clowning as I became more and more comfortable with who I was. I was allowed to be me entirely.
Absolutely. When I went there, I mean, my goal was to become a circus clown. Nothing else.
And how long were you with Ringling?
I was with Ringling, the first time I was with Ringling was from 1974 to 1980, and then I was asked back in the year of 2000 and just left in 2007.
Okay, so quite a number of years. You've gotten to live what a lot of kids might consider their dream, just running around and being around.
Living on a train.
Is it the lifestyle that kids might imagine it is, or is it pretty hard traveling from town to town, living, as you say, out of a trunk?
I can only say that there is no freedom in the world like living on the circus. You're totally free.
Clowning now is different than it was, but when you both started, you were really part of the kind of the apex of clowning in America, where a lot of the famous characters were still around and still working.
Oh, sure. Emmett Kelly was still around. Lou Jacobs, who is the most familiar clown in America. In fact, he was the only living American ever to be put on a postage stamp back in, I believe it was 1965. He was my mentor, and we worked with these great clowns for a number of years. And slowly, they started to go away, and then things changed. 1979 to 1980 was a real pivotal year for the circus. A lot of things started to change, and we were there in the 70s, so we were there in a real
right at the advent of George Lucas, right at the advent of Steven Spielberg, when the magic of the circus was kind of being occluded by computer-generated imagery like Big Sharks and Star Wars. So the whole realm of competition was different. And we, like I said, sometimes people would join the circus to be a performing artist, to be a circus artist. Others would use the circus as a stepping stone into other arenas. And that's what we were dealing with. You were seeing the influx of clowns and then the dispersal of the personalities, using this as just something to attach to a resume. But Jonathan, is a true clown.
What I have an advantage over a lot of people because I was not only there in the 70s, but then I returned back to Ringling Brothers in 2000 after 20 years when a lot of those changes had taken place. And so it was like being Rip Van Winkle, you know, all of a sudden you're waking up, but you're in a different, things have changed. And some of the biggest changes were video. The train runs in my day, the train runs are what we call the trips in between towns.
Okay.
You know, there were people in the hallway sitting on the vestibule, a lot of things going on all the time. And this last time when I went back there, I noticed that it was very quiet. And that was because of the videos. When I was now on a train run, what we call train run, people just go in their rooms and turn on videos.
No community
we didn't
anymore.
have that.
Mm-hmm.
And
they
we couldn't
isolate.
have TV. There was no cable TV back then. So even some of the people even have dishes on the train now so they can watch satellite TV as the train goes around the country. Well, that changed everything.
Yeah.
Because it's just like in society. We don't need to... we have our fun already built into these video games and video machines and video tapes and everything else, where when I was a kid, you know, you used to have to make your own entertainment.
The circus remains a tactile entertainment, consortium, whereas everything else, all these, new technological entanglements that do things to bring us together actually and ironically kind of seem to keep us farther apart.
I had a friend, speaking of technological things, I had a friend that was one of the clowns. His name was Sid Shoemaker, who went out and bought one of the first Pong games when they came out, and it was like $100, and he went and bought this game, and he sat in his room and he would play it, and then he charged people 50 cents a game to come and play it, and they would line up outside the train room.
So he got his $100 back.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying now with video and stuff. That Pong game was, wow, everybody wanted to play that Pong game. And
that was revolutionary.
Yeah, that was,
One of the clowns that was around in your day when you were getting started was Barry Lubin,
mm-hmm.
who's featured on the documentary Circus that's on PBS. Well, it was on last week. It's on again this week mm-hmm. and next week. And Barry's a good friend of yours. How did you get to know Barry?
Barry and I went to clown college together back in 1974. He was from New Jersey. He had just gotten out of school up in Boston. He had done some stuff already, and I didn't. And we just became very, very good friends. And it's funny because we never actually did a clown routine together. But outside of the ring, we were the dearest of friends. And to this day, 35 years later, we've never lost contact. And I call him on a weekly basis, and we still converse all the time about different things. When I was on the show, I would ask him for some advice. Every once in a while, he'll ask me for some advice, But he's done quite well for himself, and I'm very proud of Barry.
Eugene, you were talking before about some of the lessons that you learned being a clown and how that has helped you in the rest of your life.
As a dwarf, growing up in the South as a dwarf, it was a word that was not allowed to be used in my household. Nobody ever used the word. And so I always used to think it was something I had to cower from. In the circus gave me an opportunity to find myself not only as an artist, not only as a performer, but as a dwarf. And I learned in the circus that it was okay to be a dwarf, that I learned how to celebrate something that I used to think was a scourge or a curse. And through that courage, through that opportunity, I was able to pursue other things. Like I said, I was the first and only, dwarf to have ever learned to fly an ultralight airplane. I organized the first and only commercial rock radio tour of Somalia in 93. I was in Bosnia in 94. I crashed President Clinton's inaugural in 93. These things were based on the fact that I had learned to link who I was to what I was, and I was able to celebrate. And I give the circus entire credit for that. If I had an 8-week interlude in my life that really changed my life, I would have to say the clown college did, and the subsequent tours on the road, learning to adjust and also learning to take responsibility for my actions, good or bad, that not everything I did was related to the dwarf thing, good or bad. And I feel like that has helped me get through the rough times, the halcyon days, and I'm very happy to be who I am, which is something I probably wouldn't be saying if I had not chosen that road 35 years ago.
Eugene Pidgeon and Jonathan Freddies, thank you both for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. May all your days be circus days.
There you go.
Part 2 of Circus airs tonight at 8 on MPB TV. You can see Jonathan Freddies' blog, Trunk Stories, by visiting trunkstories.blogspot.com. That's our show for this Wednesday morning. I'm Karen Brown, and this has been Mississippi Edition on MPB Think Radio. We always like to hear from you. If you have a comment, a question, a story idea, an interview idea, please let us know at Mississippi Edition at mpbonline.org. You can also visit our website to download previous episodes of Mississippi Edition. Just go to mpbonline.org/Mississippi Edition. Stay tuned for Southern Remedy up next, and I hope you'll join us again tomorrow morning at 8:30. I'm Karen Brown, and this is Mississippi Edition on MPB Think Radio.
Support for Mississippi Edition comes from the John C. Stennis Institute of Government at Mississippi State University, providing research, training, and service to government and civic education to the citizens of Mississippi.
This is an MPB Think Radio podcast. mpbonline.org. MPB Think Radio.